Hey there! Did you know Kroger always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Kroger app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Kroger today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to the Anfield Index podcast. It is a Friday evening ahead of a game on Sunday against that lot, which we're very much looking forward to and will feature no doubt in our chat. But joining me for this episode of AIP is my friend and colleague Lisa Marie Hanahan, who's banging on her mic there in the background. You can hear percussionist
Sorry.
Lisa Marie Hanahan.
I thought it was being quiet about it too.
Joining us all the way from good old Yankee land. How are you, my friend?
I am good on this sunny Friday afternoon. How about yourself there, Trev? Episode 383 of the Anfield Index podcast.
Thank you very much for that. I'm good, except I realize I've made a dreadful faux pas in referring to you, a Southerner, as being in Yankee land. I apologize profusely.
That's all right. I am a Yankee by birth, so it's okay.
Oh, well, there you go. I have a question for you because of the day that's in April the 5th, not long from the 30-year anniversary of the death of Kurt Cobain. And I was having a little reminisce today about 1994 and looking forward to the Nirvana European tour. There was an Ireland dates in the RDS, and I'd missed them first time round. I wasn't, I guess, old enough, hip enough, whatever. It was 1991 the first time they played. That, if anyone can believe it, and I'm sure they can, was the year I did my leaving certificate here. So that means the year you go kind of 17 into 18 for the most part. And I missed out on those gigs. It was a little bit early for me in my musical development. I was only getting a feel for what I actually liked in terms of music at that stage. I certainly wasn't an early adopter with that grunge stuff until, I guess, maybe 6, 7, 8 months after those gigs. However, by the time I kind of hit that period of my life, I was all in. I was basically Mr. Seattle. That actually was my nickname in first year. I used to have one plaid shirt over another.
I was going to say, I have a picture in my head.
Oh, it was a thing. And again, famously short of hair that I am, I was a long-haired, bearded fella back in the time. And it was very much my scene. I loved all of it. I loved the more obscure bands. I loved the really well-known bands. I loved everything from Pearl Jam to Soundgarden to Mudhoney. And like I say, then lesser-known bands who were floating around that scene as well at the time, and the crossover ones who went kind of into some areas which could be considered pop, like Dinosaur Jr., huge American rock, alternative American rock fan of the time. So my question to you, Lisa Marie, to get us started on this little chat here, because a lot of people have gotten into these bands after the event. They don't have to be necessarily contemporaries of us age-wise, but when it was a thing first out, were you into it?
I was. not heavily, but yes. And I enjoyed the more mainstream, I would say, Nirvana, Pearl Jam. I'm drawing a blank now, but yes. So, and I would love to say that I was forward thinking enough to have discovered them on my own, but my awareness came from friends and acquaintances in college, who were listening to them. And so I started listening to them and et cetera, et cetera. But yes, Trev, I have this whole picture of you looking like a member of the cast of Singles. Do you remember that movie?
You've got me. You've got me to a T. That's exactly right. Silly floppy hats, T-shirts with holes in them, baggy jeans, chains, all that shit. I had all of it. Suede jackets, leather jackets, all of it. You
had your Doc Martens too, right?
Oh, you know it. All of it bought in secondhand stores because broke student and genuinely broke student. Although I always seem to have more money than my very, very middle to upper class pals who surrounded me in Trinity. Nearly everyone I was friends with was well to do. I was the only poor guy in the group, in the extended friend group, and yet I always had more money than them because they never worked during the summers.
I was going to say, probably because you worked and they didn't.
Yeah, I broke my ass on building sites from the very start of end of May or whenever the exams were over, and all the way through until the end of September when Freshers Week would start and we'd be back at it again. I mean, like flat out building sites. And so I came back and I used to have this ball of money that was burning a hole in my pocket. And of course I've always been the idiot who, we're out and someone's like doing the sad face because they don't have money for a drink. Oh, don't worry about it. I was that idiot. I think about all the money that I spent that I should not have spent on idiots. But anyway, there you go. That's my memories of back in the day, and it was a really cool, exciting scene. I remember I was talking to someone on Twitter today, Sean. I don't know if you follow Sean Cummins, but we were just had a little bit over and back about Unplugged when that came out. I think that was 93. Yeah. Oh my god, that was, like I said to a few people here, including Dave Hendrick, back in the day. I don't know if you know this story, but we discovered on one of our epic chats recently, in between trying to record our hours-long podcasts, we discovered that when Dave was a young fella, he was taught by me in a revision course.
No.
And he remembered me because he remembered me talking to him in between, sessions about Nirvana Unplugged and how I had thought it was a religious experience, and it stayed with him. Isn't that mental? What a small fucking world.
That is amazing.
It's not. I honestly couldn't get my head around that, but it was. I remember a few of us gathered. It was a kind of a darkened room. There was a kind of awestruck reverence in the room. It was supposed to be this big drinking session. Almost nobody did anything except sit there with their mouth open. It was just, and I the first thing was, did you record that? Because we need to play that again. It was absolutely amazing stuff. But yeah, anyway, I just thought for the days that we're in it, I'd mention that, and interesting to get a little bit of the background on yourself. Yeah, I get what you mean. It was pretty unavoidable. The likes of Smashing Pumpkins, Alice in Chains, all those kind of bands.
Alice in Chains, all of those. Yeah. I mean, I can see like all the CD covers in my head and, the whole bit. And my younger brother was much, much more into it than I was even. So, I mean, he had posters all over his room and just the whole bit.
Do you, as a rule, and this will be my last probing non-football question, do you as a rule have, I know you love to sing, I know you have therefore a type of music that you're being exposed to on a regular basis, would that actually be the type of music that you like to listen to, or do you have a more kind of eclectic thing going on, or what is it?
No, I do. I have a very eclectic music interest, but that is in the mix. Like I've started this playlist that I call In My Youth or From My Youth or something like that. And it's basically all music from the 80s and 90s. And it's everything from Debbie Gibson to to Nirvana. I mean, it's just this type of stuff that used to be on the radio or whatever. It's just, and it's so funny. When I'm listening to kind of like the 80s and 90s stations on, the Sirius or whatever in the car, when something comes up, I'll make a note of it and I'll go and I'll find it and I'll add it to the playlist. So I have got just a bizarrely eclectic. I wouldn't say there's anything necessarily one type that I like. I mean, it's like, oh, I like a couple songs from that group or that type. And I'm very weird. Not weird. It's just eclectic. And I like what I like. If I like the sound of it, I like it. And I don't necessarily, limit myself to this type of music or that type of music.
I think that's, if you get to our stage of life and you are somehow hemmed in by what you think is only listen to what you think is cool, you may well have a problem. You may well have some sort of cognitive issue. But, I will admit to when I was a kid being, I say kid, like when I was 19, 20, 21, 22, being very, very musical snob. I used to buy all the musical press. I didn't listen to anything that was considered to be chart music. I was one of those wankers. But you do realize over time that an awful lot of stuff you were completely ignoring. For example, my pal Pooley has a fantastic podcast called Def Lep Pod, yes, which is, of course, about all the Def Leppard songs. He goes through them individually, he goes through the albums. It's just a wonderful piece of enthusiast podcasting. It's fantastic and engaging and all the rest of it. And I realized that in the late 80s, when I was just starting to get a clue, they were one of the bands that I shunned. And then as the 80s went into the 90s, I wouldn't hear tell of any of that kind of what I considered poodle rock. And yet when I went back to listen to some of the music, like you say, look, if it's good, it's good. I even had, if you can believe it, AC/DC in that bracket. I'm not listening to them. That's what those like really uncool fuckers listen to. And then I started listening to Best of AC/DC. Holy shit. I think it might have been the Iron Man soundtrack or something that got me into it. And only then did I realize how wonderful they were and what amazing music they made. So yeah, and like in an effortless segue, you like this one. Speaking of making absolutely sweet music, we had a fantastic couple of moments in midweek where we could enjoy some craftsmanship that you really, really need to savor when you see it from the Reds in the shape of Annie McAllister's wonder hit, in the shape of that lovely goal by Cody Gakpo, in the shape of that lovely improvised Nether Regions strike by Darwin Núñez. And I don't know how you were feeling immediately afterwards. I think I saw, did you have an immediate listen? Were you on the live call for Raw? I tried to check.
I was on.
So were you nodding along in terms of the early observations we were making about how that wasn't as comfortable as we'd like, but that's all that matters.
I was nodding along, and then I agree. I could have done with that being a little less stressful.
Yeah.
But in fact, I think I believe I messaged you at around about 72-ish minutes. And I said, well, I guess it's time to start pacing. I was really hoping that yesterday's match, against Sheffield United was one that I could just have on in the background while I was working and not, keep one eye on it and just look up as the goals were being scored and, great.
Oh, bless.
But it wasn't that at all. That was not really what happened. So from about 72, 73 minutes on, was about when I stood up and started pacing. And, I'm just saying, two goals were scored after that, but don't want to take credit, but, maybe. So yeah, that I could have done with that being just a little less tense. But we got it over the line, and I guess that's all that matters in the long run, right?
Well, it's fine because we only have Manchester United next, for fuck's sake. So that'll be a tension-free zone, obviously.
Yes.
I didn't want to spill the beans about the pacing. I didn't know if you'd have a superstition thing about that. Like we've spoken about this before. I used to be crippled by superstitions, not so much anymore. But I have noticed that that's definitely one of yours.
It's not. I don't feel like I have to get up and pace. Okay. It's not like if I don't pace, they're not going to win the game. But when we get to, honestly, it's not so much I mean, I guess it is a little superstition, but it's just, I just can't sit down anymore. It's just the tension or the anxiety, if you will, has gotten to a point where it's like, I've got to move.
Oh, I get that. I get that.
And it's not like I'm pacing the length of the house. I mean, it's, it's a couple steps either way. Well, it depends on what room I happen to be in. I was in my office, so there isn't a lot of space for pacing back and forth. Yeah. But if I'm downstairs in the living room, more open. So I've got a little more room to wander. But yeah, but no, I don't know that the pacing is superstitious so much as it is just, okay, this game is just too tense and too anxious, and I can't sit still. I've got to get up and move.
All I'm hearing is rationalization. That's all I'm hearing.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
The reason I bring it up is I actually do agree with you. When I got on Twitter first, and you discover a wonderful community. My actual initial community on Twitter was majority American and Canadian via a website, the Liverpool Offside, that I used to write for, and those guys were my initial contacts, and then a handful of Irish and English people sort of joined the fold, and then it grew from there. But initially, for those first couple of years, that was almost, if a match went by without somebody asking me, was I hiding behind the couch, then it wasn't a match, because I was like that. I'd be on the move. I was walking around. Will I stand over here? I was jumping around the place. I literally, like a jack in the box watching games. I'm now tethered by my laptop since I started doing Raw for AI Pro. I just have to sit still. That's it. That's my job now. It's in a weird way, the football has become this almost like a kind of a gig, if you know what I'm saying. It's like that part of me that used to be so emotive and so energetic during a match has been very much curbed, to the extent that I think the last 4 or 5 times I went to Anfield, I was amazed at how how sort of still I was. You know what I mean? I was certainly shouting a lot of things, but I was, I barely moved. I barely moved. I celebrated goals and stuff like that. I hugged the strangers beside me, etc. But it's amazing. It gets in on you. It really does. And I often, as we're talking during matches, I often envy the ability to get up and pace, because I feel like sometimes just firing the laptop through the television. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. It's funny though, isn't it, Lisa Marie? And it's not a thing I'm taking for granted, but there is that lovely, quiet confidence. I know you are a big fan of my Danish pal, and he and I always have this conversation about trust and how it's been the overwhelming feeling since Jurgen took over. For the vast majority of the time that you trust these guys, and the main networks, each one of them every week tells you how Liverpool have the most late goals and all the rest of it. There was a time when the superstitious part of me would hate to hear that, but now I actually find myself leaning into it with a level of not arrogance, but just quiet confidence that, you honestly don't know what's going to happen with these guys. They're capable of doing anything right up to the last second. We've seen so many incidents of it that you would have to be a bit, I think, almost contrarian to try to deny it at this stage, Lisa Marie.
Get ready for family fun that's out of this world at Big Air Trampoline Park inside Fieldhouse USA at the Polaris Mall. With over 40 attractions included in the admission price, there's something for everyone. From birthday parties to toddler time, and even daily deals like Mega Jump Mondays and Wednesdays, 2-for-1 Tuesdays, and family fun packages on Thursdays and Sundays, Big Air Columbus does it all. Big Air Columbus, where the fun never ends. Visit bigairusa.com/Columbus for details.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit libertyshield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
I agree. And I think we have touched on this in the past. And I think that's where, I guess about this time last year, or even, a little bit earlier in the season, where it just got so frustrating because I had become so used to the fact. I mean, I honestly would believe until the whistle blew, we could still, get that goal to either draw the match or win it, whatever the circumstance was. And I have kind of come back to that level of comfort again. It was a bit lost last year. But this year, I mean, you, especially, now at this point, it doesn't even almost really matter who is on the pitch, who is playing. There were a few of those games, say maybe back, in January, where we started bringing in, the younger players where it was like, but, now that doesn't even necessarily faze me because we've seen them pull things off that you wouldn't necessarily expect as far as, a late goal and everything else. So, I mean, I have reverted back to that until the whistle blows, anything can happen. And it often does.
Yeah, in fact, I've come to expect that, and I don't, again, not in a lazy way or in a sort of arrogant way, but I've come to expect that level of effort. That was what I loved about the Klopp era, was very soon into it, you could see that this team was playing right till the very last second, regardless of whether they were 5-0 up or 1-0 down. And that in and of itself speaks, I think, to the attitudinal change that came under this guy. And I love that. I absolutely love it. I hope it's something that continues quite seamlessly. I don't think there are many managers who could be in the contention for taking over who are going to be anything less than as expectant of that. And I hope that sort of fight to the death thing, play till the final whistle thing continues, because it's something that I've come to rely on, to the extent that when it doesn't happen, on the rare occasion where we failed to launch a ball into the box if we're 1-0 down or to draw or whatever in the last seconds, I've been fucking furious, because it's so atypical now,
right,
to see anything other than that absolute sort of balls out effort right till the death. And I appreciate it immensely. I want to give you a chance to talk about something that you brought up as a potential topic for the show this week, and we can talk about it in whatever way you want to frame it, really. But we both were very tickled, I think, by the latest output from the LFC media department, where we had the latest sort of classroom, meeting room effort by the boys. We saw one a couple of years ago and it was great crack. This one, with, I think Joel Mata, perhaps the highlight for me. This one, it's hard to pick a highlight. There's so many tremendous things. It's probably Darwin, if we're being honest, but there's so many tremendous bits and pieces to it. And I know you were, I don't know if you saw these in order, but the way I saw it was I saw the outtakes first, and then it was so polished to see the final thing, and of course non-actors, etc., but it's quite slick and polished. They did a super job with the edit, and they really got this kind of thing across, and they got the little bits of humor in. I did enjoy the outtakes though. What did you make of the whole thing? And Do you see a value in this? Because I can see some naysayers going, it's more kind of nonsense and what's the point of it and all the rest of it. Because I think when it breaks down, it comes down to basically a kind of a commercial situation where you have some product or other that's, going to be 100% recycled plastic bottles, and this is what's at the heart of it. This is where the sponsorship money for it is coming from. But what did you make of it as a thing and them as a thing? Do you think they help or hinder?
I enjoyed it. I mean, and I saw it in the proper order. I saw the actual finished product, if you will, first, and then the outtakes.
Okay.
But even still, we've talked in the past that the LFC media team does this type of thing well. And as long as they do it well, then I'm all for it. I think it's, it gives you that additional, just, if you will, kind of insight into the different personalities of the players and everything else. And, so I enjoyed it. At first I was kind of like, well, they've done, what I thought was interesting is it was, essentially in a lot of ways that same script from a few years ago. But of course, all the players, the actors were different with the exception of Andy Robertson, but he was in a different, role this go round. So it still worked, if you will. But I think it's, it's a bit of fun. It's just good crack, as you would say. And then the outtakes are hysterical. But there are two things that I think I enjoyed the most about it. Number one, when Darwin rolls off all that whole Spanish speech at the end, and of course we're so used to hearing him. Now, obviously, he was given a script, lines to memorize, but it was so just well done. I was like, oh, wow, he comes across much better when he speaks in his native language, doesn't he? Go figure. And then I thought Ibu could not have sounded or been more French if he tried. I was just, I know he's French. I get that. However, it was just, and my favorite outtake was the bit where he was speaking French and he finished and they go, "Is that right?" He goes, "What do you mean, is that right?" "Yes, I'm French. Of course it's right."
Yeah, the indignance was wonderful. Yeah, it was tremendous. I have to say, this is, again, like trying to wear two hats here. I as a guy who has a tremendous interest in, that side of things, making things for the camera and performing in front of it. I have to say, I think Robbo is one of those guys who could just turn his hand to anything. He's really natural. Yeah,
he is very natural, and certainly when his playing career is done, I think he would do very well in some sort of media role, if he's such, as a pundit or whatever, just because he seems very natural, in the way he speaks and the way he, again, I know there were lines given to him, but even still, he does seem to have a natural comfort, if you will, doing that. So I think, if he does decide to step into a media type role, be it as a pundit or whatever, I think, I think he would do well doing that sort of thing, especially with not only does he seem comfortable in it, but he's just got that natural bit of, humor to him as well that just seems to come naturally to him. So I think that would carry well and would be interesting to watch. So anyway, who knows? It'll be interesting to see, maybe where he steps, when down the road when his playing career is done. But he does seem to have I don't want to say gift. That's not even really the right word, but he just seems comfortable in that role. But he always even seems comfortable when he's doing, to me, any of the media duties. They've all been trained, but he seems, just the answers and some of the insights he gives, I think he is one of the players that seems to do very well. Yeah, he's giving the, kind of, I don't want to say stock answers, but the things that, yes, he's touching on what he's probably been instructed or taught to touch on, but he seems to do it with additional bit of insight or whatever that doesn't feel as rehearsed as some of the other players' answers do sometimes, but that's just my take.
No, that natural thing with the guy, I think, listen, he's obviously the most, I think, traditional kind of captain, British style captain, in terms of someone who's very loud but also kind of affable, and who commands a certain amount of respect and has that seniority and all that kind of thing. So that's clearly a role that he plays within the squad, but also he does seem to be genuinely quite funny and witty and all that kind of thing as well. But I think he's probably, I imagine he's one of the loudest guys on the team. And I'd be very curious to see which of these guys, because now you do see this. You do see that players who've worked with really superb coaches, an excess amount of them go on to try their hand at coaching themselves. And I do wonder, after this lengthy spell under Klopp, whether or not he'll be one of them. I think he might be a great candidate for one of the guys who might try to stay in the game in that kind of role, in terms of coaching and management and all that kind of thing. I wouldn't be surprised in the least, because he does seem to have quite a bit of grey matter there in between the ears. So I'll be curious to watch that.
I've seen a couple references from some of the younger players talking. I mean, in fact, Connor Bradley a couple times has mentioned that Andy Robertson has been sort of a mentor, if you will, to him. So I think he really has been one to kind of put his arm around some of these younger players, and a little bit of that has probably been the months that he was out with his injury and some of that. But he does strike me as somebody that comes very naturally to. I mean, I think even if he got involved with maybe, the academy, and I'd love to see it for Liverpool, but he just strikes me as the type who would do very well working with the younger players. And I don't know why that is, but there's just something about him that strikes me as he would have. I just think he would be the right type of person, I think, that I would want coaching my son, if that makes sense. But it
does, yeah, I get it. I agree with you. I can see that. I think he just has that affability as well as whatever else may be going on. Just a brief 20-second mention here. If you are not an AI Pro member, then you are likely to run out of podcast very soon. I've left this a bit late, but for $4.99 a month, you can be one of the cool kids. Go over to AnfieldIndex.com and sign up, or spend €40 for the year, £40, whatever the hell it is. It's a small amount in the greater scheme of things. Come and join us. We're waiting. I want to go on and ask you a question. That sounded a bit unnecessarily threatening.
It sounded a little menacing. I'm not sure that was quite the tone you were wanting to strike.
No, it absolutely was. So I only want people who are not easily spooked. The next question I wanted to ask you this evening is, who is in the running based on their performances? I was going to ask you, what do you think we need between now and the end of the season? I just have this horrible feeling it'll be one of those questions where we'll both just agree, we need 8 freaking wins. That's as simple as that. I don't. There's not.
We just need to win. We need to win.
There's not a whole lot of chat to be milked out of that, because you end up having to go back and look at fixtures, and it's all supposition. So let me go to the next question, which is a different thing entirely, and very much a subjective thing for you. Who do you think is in the running for your player of the season? I'm not interested in what some of the really silly groups who make decisions on these things will do, or even the in-house one.
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, We really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
Sports Social Podcast Network.